to the McCall College Community Education Series. We are so glad you have joined us. This week, we're continuing our series in art and art education. And we're pleased to have Nettie K of Nettie K Studio. Welcome, Nettie K.
Hi, everybody. So glad you're back.
Thank you. So why don't you give us a brief update of what we've done so far for the person that might be just joining us tonight.
All right. Well, I think in our first demonstration of in our art presentations, we did a what did we do? We did a little bit of basic shapes, how to paint a cylinder, and also we've done a little bit of landscape painting in another one of our episodes. And then the last two episodes were on portraiture. And so we did a little bit on how to mix colors and as far as portraits and that sort of thing. So that was really a lot of fun and a lot just fast, rapid fire, super fun learning on how to construct a child's portrait. So if you missed that one, go back and watch it. It'll be worth your time, I'm sure. So.
And now behind you is another
Yes.
child's portrait.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us a bit of a rundown on that portrait?
Well, this painting right here, I thought I would show you one that's in a more finished state because we just didn't have time to finish up. I did a demonstration years ago. This is my number 2 kid who is now like 32 years old, and his name's Austin, and we did a demonstration up in Seattle years and years and years ago, and so then I finished that painting up. And so this is one that is in a more finished state, and you can sort of see how wonderfully three-dimensional that is and how lovely it is. We've had this one hanging in our bedroom, and so I love watching it waking up to it every morning and remembering that little round face. Isn't that fun? So yeah, so we're just wanting to show you what they look like when they're framed up and finished and that sort of thing. Any other things?
We've also had some questions and comments about prices and availability. Let's start with the availability. And so if someone were wanting a portrait of a child, where would they go to find the product that they're looking for?
Well, probably the most reliable place to go is on my Etsy site at nettiekstudio.etsy.com. And there are different sizes and prices for various different sizes of paintings and complexities. So, for instance, you might have a painting that has a hand in it, or we have one painting of a young cowboy that's got a full rope and all sorts of things, plus a cowboy hat and a saddle. Those are a little bit more involved, so they're a little bit more expensive. But the basic heads and shoulders are the least amount. And so the main thing is to have a really good photo, everybody. And remember, from last week, we talked about having a dark side of the face and a light side. Put your child in a window if you have the opportunity, at the end of the day, so it's natural light and a nice, wonderful shadow. And even if some of the head is missing, I would much rather see a little bit of a shadow in order to give it that wonderful Rembrandt feel to the painting. And so they're a real treasure. From my clients all over the world have just absolutely cherished these paintings for a long time, as 30 years actually. Yeah, okay. So anyway, that's the best place to go. The nettiek.com, that would be a good place to go to look at some of the other portraits, some of the Nobel laureate scientists that we've painted and I've painted. And so anyway, take a look at those. Yes. Anyway,
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
And so now we're transitioning into flowers,
I'm going to
and in
pop this
particular
down. Yeah.
sunflowers.
Okay.
And so I'll let you transition, and we will and I'll turn it over to you for our evening of painting flowers, and in particular tonight, the sunflowers.
Yes. We're going to paint tonight on a long skinny canvas. So I'm going to pop this up here. And I have and guess what, you guys? We're painting in acrylic. Yeah, we've been painting in oil up until this point. Very, very different. Acrylic dries very fast. And so especially on a hot summer day. Do I need to lower that at all there, Dr. Williams? I think I'm okay. And so what you need for that, generally I don't use a fancy palette. I'll use these little paper plates. You can see them down here in our screen. And I've got these paints. These are actually, I'm not sponsored by any of these guys, but this is my newest paint that I'm using, which is called Sax, S-A-X, and they're called heavy-bodied acrylics. A lot of times in our kids' classes, we use more of a student grade paint, which is a little more, well, it's not quite as thick. And so actually I've got a sample of what one of them looks like. Look at on this plate right here. This is a student grade paint right there. Look how it's all puddled out like that. And these will stack up higher. The paints that are the heavier bodied paints will stand up and have a little more texture to them. So there's different kinds. There's the kinds that you know, there's all this new thing of throwing paints in a cup and doing what's called a dirty pour. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard about that, but wow, that's crazy, where they'll just stack paints inside a cup and turn them upside down and make abstract art. That's a fluid type paint, very, very liquid, and you add liquid to it in order to get that effect where you can drip it down the canvas or throw it across the room or whatever you want to do, hit the wall. But these are paints that stand up a little bit. So it's a little bit more like the consistency of maybe honey compared to a softened butter. Okay, just saying. And then there's seriously heavy paint that comes out of a tube. And that is a very textural paint. And so you can get all kinds of wonderful effects by using that. So today we're going to be using a little bit of a heavier body paint, and it's going to help us get a texture a little bit as we add layers to it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do to start with. Now I have a little trick that I have just really kind of come up with. I'm sure somebody else has thought of this. But if you do watercolor, I don't know, raise your hand if you do watercolor. Anyway, a lot of watercolorists use what's called a masking fluid. And so they'll paint out on the paper the areas that they want to keep white. And then at the end, after they painted everything, they rub off the kind of like, it's like rubber cement kind of stuff. And the white is left, and that leaves the highlight. Well, this is a little bit different when you're painting in acrylic. So I thought, in order for us to get an even-sided vase, you know, I've taught this where we've done a line down the middle and then just work our way out back and forth until you get it just right. But I came up with a new solution, and of taking contact paper, and I remember Bob Ross used to use contact paper. I'm just remembering, and he would make a frame out of it. But I've taken this is just contact paper that I picked up at the thrift store, and it was a little square piece of contact paper, and I fold it in half. Now you could probably use a piece of notebook paper if you wanted to, just to trace around it. But then I took a pair of scissors and I just cut out the shape of half the vase, okay, like that. I'm going the wrong way. And then you open it up and you have it even on both sides rather than having it all distorted. It happens to where you just get it, you know, completely distorted. And then you just peel this off, and I don't know if I've got this one started. Yes, I do. Okay. That's always the hardest part, is getting the contact paper to be peeled away from the paper behind it. And then we're going to place that onto the canvas. Now, why am I doing that? Well, this is so I can paint the background. This is a funny one. I think I'm going to just adjust that a little bit. I can come back in. I'm going to just come back in and make this a little bit more rounded in the center, defeating my purpose here, because I just don't want it flat across the top. So you can see, you can just mess around with it and cut it. And you can make all kinds of different shapes as well. I'm trying to look at this one over here. This is a fat one. I've got two of them going at the same time over here, so one off to the side. And then I want to have it kind of a little bit round at the top, and then we'll put our flowers on. Okay, so this is not going to be part of the permanent art. This is not collage time. Now I better make sure I get this straight. Because the paint, I painted it teal underneath, it's going to, and it's dry. Okay, don't put this on wet paint. That would not be good. But it will come right off, you know, Lord willing, it will come right off. After we paint it, we'll paint the background, and then you'll have the image of this. We'll peel it back off, and we'll have the shape of the vase right on the canvas, and it'll work great. Okay, what's she talking about? Well, let's just do it. All right. Okay. So what I want to do with this one, this is going to be so much fun. I'm really excited. I'm going to get a little paper towel, hopefully. And I'm going to get a fairly good sized brush. I want to make sure I've got a nice fat brush for this. And I want to think about, I'm going to put some sunflowers. I'm going to put a big sunflower right here, one right here, maybe one hanging off here. We'll just see how many we can get going. But to start with, I want to put a background on. And so I want to do some, I want to think about how sunflowers are yellow. And this scared the daylights out of my gals over at Tamarack the other night. Tuesday night, we had a class out at Tamarack Resort. And I think the scariest thing is not having a pattern. You know, they're like, what? You mean we're just going to jump in and paint? Yes, we are. And so big fat brush, not drawing in little things and then trying to fill it all in. We're going to just put in the paint. And I've got, this brush is about 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide. You can get, you know, you can just really do it. What am I using? Well, I'm using teal, teal and purple. This is a cobalt violet paint. Isn't that yummy? It's so beautiful. And I'm just doing, and then I'm also got a little bit of, let's see, this is a phthalo blue. Now, phthalo blue, P-H-T-H-A-L-O, phthalo, I think there's a few ways of spelling it actually, is a kind of a greenish blue. So if I add white to it, it's more of a greenish blue than, say, like an ultramarine. An ultramarine blue is actually known as a reddish blue, and then we have a greenish blue, which is a phthalo blue. So I'm creating this dark pattern, or not pattern, I'm creating a dark nondescript background back in here, and I'm having a blast doing it. And then I'm going to allow this, you'll be surprised how fast this dries. We'll go down here like this. And then I'll add a little more of the teal. I might actually, I've got a little bit of white in a, no, I don't. Okay, let me see. I've got this over here. I'm going to grab this white, a little bit of white just to kind of brighten it up in a few spots. A little bit here, a little bit there. Maybe I've got another plate over here that's got a little tiny bit of yellow. So I'll see what happens. If I add a little bit of yellow, I can make it kind of greenish, which will kind of indicate maybe a little bit of a foliage, a little bit of green leaves in the background. You can make it green if you want. The key on this one, everybody, is that the flowers are yellow. And so the opposite of yellow would be violet. Or if they're orange, it would be blue. So I'm kind of thinking about what that's doing. Okay, here's our vase. Here's our vase. The vase is going to be in a, eventually, in a teal or a blue or whatever color you want. And it's going to probably be fairly dark. I'm painting right over the top of that, of the edges of that crazy piece of contact paper. And we're just going to let that go like this. Isn't this fun? I think the acrylic is so fun. I used to hate it. I thought, oh, I don't want to paint in acrylic. It dries too fast and I can't mess with it. Well, there's some benefit to that. And I'm doing some very large acrylic, kind of abstract, well, they're not abstract, but they're expressionist landscapes right now. And the neat thing is I'm going to add a little bit of orange in there to make a green or some leaves for later. And you can do it in layers, and the layers will dry in about 15 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to pull this over so you can see this a little better. Yeah, you can. Okay, good. So here's a little bit of orange. If I put look at how that turns into green instantly. And so it almost creates a little bit of a sense of a leaf, and we'll cut into that and paint it in the negative space. I'll explain that in a minute. And then as it comes down here, I'm going to add, oh, let me think, what do I want? I want a little bit of white so that it will make a nice contrast. So I'm going to lighten it up, and we'll make it just a little bit like there's a light. And part of the reason I'm doing that is because that base is going to be a little bit dark. So I want to think about when I pull that paper off, what's it going to look like? And so I'm just playing around with it a little bit. I could put a table on there if I want, and just put a line across and make it sit on a table like this, and make it into a kind of a brown table if I want a little bit later, or I can make a tablecloth, whatever. That will be kind of interesting. Let's make that nice and bright.
We've had a comment, and I'm going to sort of make it into a question.
Good.
And Brandy was commenting that she uses paper plates too, but I thought that sort of leads to a question of why the paper plates and why not other formal art tools like palette paper and all those other things.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, because you can. All right. The reason I don't use paper plates for oil painting is that often you're using solvents in the paint that will soak right through. Okay, one time I made the mistake of using a styrofoam plate and oil paint with thinner, and it ate a hole right through the styrofoam plate. So you can't use it for that. So but with acrylic paints, you can use the kind of coated paper plates or styrofoam plates. For the environment, I try to stay away from the styrofoam anymore. But you can use the paper plates. And even some of the, Donna Dewberry and some of those gals, they've just made special things, marketed special things that are paper plate holders, so that they're not quite so flimsy. But they're great. You can just toss them out in the end. It's not a big deal. So that's why we use them. And we don't use them for oil paint because it will soak right through the plate and cause a problem. I thought I was going to have an explosion the first time that happened. That was fun. Okay, so I've got this going across like that, and then I'm going to think about, let me see something over here. No, I think I'm good. All right, so I've got my little table going down here. Let's put in a purple tablecloth just for fun. All right, right over the bottom, and we'll just kind of make that kind of all real colorful. Now you can see it's fairly thin right now. You can almost see the background through the paint, and so you can paint it in layers and make it thicker and thicker. The more paint you use, of course, the more it's going to be more opaque, or to where you can't see through it. And now I'm realizing, well, this is the other fun thing when I step away from the canvas and I realize that I've got it all askew because I'm sitting off to the side. I have to always remind myself it's not going to be straight because I'm sitting off to the side. Now I'm realizing I need a little bit more up in here, so I'm just kind of playing around. How's our glare? Can everybody see that okay? I hope. So anyway, this is going to be kind of nice and intense. All right. So now I've got this part, and I'm going to just allow a little bit more. Let me get this down to the bottom, so I'm going to make that nice and light still. A little more exciting. Also, I wanted to mention to you, when you're painting in oil, when it dries, primarily it stays the same color as what you put down. Okay, outside of maybe some browns, it'll get a little bit matte. But if you put a finish over the top of it, the color will be exactly what you put down before. In acrylic, the paint will dry darker. okay, by a notch. And so what you sit down, you may not be able to match the next time around because it dries darker. So this is just the fun of this. So you're constantly messing around with it all the time. Okay, well that's a pretty good start. And we're going to let that sit for a minute. Let's see what it looks like underneath. You guys ready to look? Ooh, this is going to be exciting. Okay, now, hopefully this works. Okay, so now I pulled this off, and there is the lovely shape. This feels like craft time, you know, but the shape of the vase, and it looks pretty straight and not too crooked. Isn't that fun? Okay, so now I'm going to go in and think about what's happening with this vase to start with while I'm waiting for this to dry a little bit up here. And I think today what we'll do is we're going to start out by taking a little bit of phthalo blue, and it's a very transparent blue, and I'm going to come along the edge of that jar or that vase. I'm dragging that along like this. I don't have a teeny tiny brush. Look how fat this is. It's just, if you have a brush with a proper edge, it doesn't matter if it's 4 inches wide, really. You can, if you got a good edge to it, it doesn't really matter. You can really get a nice accurate line to it. Okay, hopefully, since I'm looking off to the side here, I won't go over the side. I don't worry too much if I go over the edge. Generally, when you're painting something that's round, you don't want it to be paper cut, look like a paper cutout like we just did. Hello. And so you want to kind of be able to fuzz out the edges just a little bit. So I'm going to make that nice and soft by going over it just a little bit so it doesn't look super sharp. Okay, just a little. And then I'll come up here and we'll get this little scoop going like this. Now you can make your vase any color. I had some of my gals at Tamarack the other night. They painted it all different colors on the background. Then we put on the masking thing and then painted it a second layer over the top. That was kind of crazy, but it worked, and it was really, really interesting. Everybody's vases were completely different, and some of them were, we've done them red and gold and transparent, not transparent. Now, what's wrong with this picture? Well, I'll tell you what's wrong. The back of the vase is non-existent. So I'm going to take and make a small, maybe I need a, pardon me, a little letter C. I call it the letter C. I hope you can see this. I'm going to come up here and do a letter C like that, so it doesn't look like a football. All right. I'm going to put a backwards letter C over here like that. And then I'm going to create the ellipse over the top of it like this and swing it around a little bit like that. I don't want it pointed at the edge of the vase. Okay, that's the key, is don't make it pointed. Otherwise, it will look like a football. Okay, so there's that. Now, I'm going to come into my teal at this stage, and I'm going to throw a little teal in there, wipe my brush off a little bit. I'm going to throw a little teal up in here. Look at that. Ooh, isn't that pretty? A little teal, and it looks like it's transparent already. Yeah. So glass will have dark edges around the outside because there's a thickness to it, all right? So glass will be dark on the outside edges. And so I'm just using a teal on the inside so that it doesn't look, so that it looks a little bit lighter. And then I'll go back in with my darker blue on the outside and pull it in a little bit. There we go. And then do this kind of a thing. Yeah. And I'm thinking about the shape of that. So now I'm pulling it in around the edges of the glass vase. I think we did we do a transparent one, Dr. Williams? Did we do a transparent vase in our first? I think we did. So you can go back and watch that.
That was number 1, was it not?
Yes.
That first
yeah.
still life?
Yeah. first still life we did a transparent vase in oil. So that's kind of a good one to watch. And oops, and then I'm going to end up distorting my vase. You can always just catch it really fast before it gets out of hand. And thank goodness today we've got a little bit of a cooler bit of weather today, and I'm really happy about that, I'll tell you. And so what happens if I put some white with this Prussian blue? Let's find out. I think it might be an interesting color. Let's try it. So it makes this wonderful kind of a lighter color in the middle, and then I've still got a little bit of that teal popping through like that. Okay. A little muddy. All right. I want to make sure. Yes, that is the right color. Okay. And you just keep messing with it, and then it just kind of comes out like that. This. Okay. Now, you can see I've got it lighter in the middle. I'll probably let that just set up a little tiny bit, fumbling around. And then I'm also going to take, I think I'd like to take a little bit of yellow with some teal, and we'll put a little bit down here like that, and a little bit like this, so it kind of has this feeling of being able to see through it. And then I'll take a little white on my brush, and I'm going to create a highlight on the edge of that, and then I'm going to pretend like it's the light's hitting right here. It's going to also hit on the edge of this part of the rim, and then also on the inside of, so it goes through the glass and comes out right down in here. Okay, just like that. And then with that white, it lightens up. I don't go all the way to the edge, but it lightens it up just like that. And then we have just the makings of our beautiful vase. I like to scumble out just the edges a little bit of the white. In fact, I'll probably go over it once and then break it and then come back in and re-establish that highlight right like that. Isn't that interesting how it can make that kind of look just like it's transparent? Isn't that neat? So one more time, I'm going to add a little bit of a light green, light yellow into it that makes green, and then we'll just kind of make it feel as though it's transparent. Yes, in fact, even a little bit in the inside of the glass, because the background looks like it's green. So I'm going to put a little bit of that background light green as it shines through the blue in the middle of the vase, and maybe a little bit more up here. Play around with it. One of the really good ways of doing this is to take a look, set up your still life, and take a look at what a vase really looks like with the light shining through, and say, what am I really looking at here? You know, that'd be good. All right, now, gotta quit messing around. I would like to now go in. We're going to come in with some, I've got some various different colors of yellows and oranges. Okay, so let's see. I also wanted, I'm actually going to start with a little bit of purple. And this is going to be a little weird. Purple, and I'm going to clip this without messing it up too much. Purple and orange. Okay. Purple and orange makes this kind of a deep brown. I don't like squeezing out brown paint. I like to make my own. And I'm going to establish where the center of one of the flowers is, way up here. Okay, I don't know if I probably should lower it so you can see it. Wouldn't that be good? All right. So I'll put one there, and then I'm going to make another one. I might make it even darker by adding a little bit of blue to it. Yeah, like that. That's a little darker. So you can just kind of find the values there. I'm going to add, let's see, I've got one there, and then I'm going to go down here a little bit. This is going to be our featured flower right here. I'm not getting too crazy with it. I'm looking at, let's see, I want to make sure that I do a kind of an ellipse and not just all round flowers. Okay, so then this one over here, I'll do one down here. I'm going to just lower my, I'm going to do one that kind of comes over here a little bit. And I'll probably flop one over there. We'll just see what happens. So I'm just looking in the screen. I think I can see it, can I? Yeah, okay. All right, so I'm wiping my brush off, and now I want to get a bigger brush. This is called a filbert, okay? It's flat like this on the side and round on the top. And these are for petals. And also when you do your, your portraits. Good thing I didn't have any paint on that. Now I'm going to get this color. It's called chrome yellow or chrome orange. It's very, very deep, dark orange. And so instead of doing this big thing up here where you can't see, well, maybe I'll do a little bit. We'll poke a few little of this, I'm going to go from the inside and take it out like this, and we're going to just push those petals out. And I'm going to go only on one side to start with. And then I'm going to go to the next one, and we'll go over here. And this time I'm going to, this is an important stroke. So I'm taking it flat to where the middle of the flower is, and I'm going to drag it out. There's really a lot of paint on here so you can see it. And then I'm going to see if I can do this when I've got my arm out here. Turn it. So let's try that one more time. I'm going to take the brush and kind of lay it flat, drag it out, and then flip it sideways. So I'm turning it as I do this. Practice that on a piece of paper, just get a thing out, get a piece of cardboard and practice taking the strokes out like this, and you're just going out and then flipping it like that. I got to see if I can do it better with holding my brush like I'm supposed to. All right, flip it out like this and then flip it and flip it. And it turns the petals out. Now these, as we do this is, you're going, I can't really see that paint. Well, we're starting in kind of a darker mode. And if it's easier for you, guys, is to take your canvas, and I don't know if this is going to be a smart move, but take your canvas and turn it sideways like this, If it makes it easier to do your petals, you can just take your, don't feel like you have to have it up on your fancy easel. Just turn it over sideways and you can do your petals that way, right? Okay, she says as she messes things up. Okay. Sometimes I paint these flat on a table as well. And so once I get everything lined up properly, you can just lean over and give yourself a royal backache over a table, but it's kind of a fun thing. Find what works for you, and then you'll know. Okay, so let's get another one kind of going. I'll put another one kind of over here a little bit, and we'll put in a few more little petals coming this way, right? And you're going, well, these are not supposed to be orange flowers, but we start with the darks and we move up to the middle tones and the lights. So see the palette down here, we've got a dark orange, a next level up yellow, a super light yellow, and there's just a couple of different ones that we add white to, and we end up with super light white in the end. So this one, while this is setting, oh, I want to do one more up here that doesn't have a center. So I'll put just some petals going up this way, like that. And we'll put some, and we'll give that one a back to it. So let's see what that looks like. I've got my, my blue. This is my Prussian blue. And I'm going to add a little bit of this yellow to it, like this. And it's going to have Prussian blue and light yellow. Makes this kind of interesting, kind of bluish green. And then I'm going to take it like this, and we're going to put in a couple of triangles like that. And then I'm going to add a little bit of white to it, a little more yellow, and we'll make this a couple of, I'm going to just give it a slightly different look there. And then I'm going to give this a little bit of a, like a greater than, less than, like that. A little bit more white to it, a little more yellow, It lightens up, and then I'm going to take that and just throw it down right into a glass vase. I'm going to jump over the edge because I don't want that thing looking like it's on the outside. I come over, jump down into the jar, and pull it down in like that so it looks like it's in the jar. If I went right over the edge of that, it would look like it's outside the jar. We don't want that, do we? No. Okay, so then I'm going to do the same thing up here. Yeah, I think I will. So I'm going to put in a couple of little, that one's, oh, actually, no, this one's got a middle to it, so we don't want to do that. I think I've got that. And then I'm going to come up like this, and we'll put in a little stem like this. And then I'm going to come in like this and do, and this would be best if you turned it sideways, but we're going to go pretend like we're doing a heart. So you could turn yours over like that and do a heart shape like this. Okay. This is a very different kind of painting, isn't it, everybody? It's a very different kind of painting than when we were doing our portrait or our oil painting kind of thing. But that's just, it's so much fun, you know, and you don't have to get your shirt in a knot if it isn't absolutely perfect. Okay, so now what have I got going here? I've got this one. This is going to have a little bit of some more petals going this way. What happens? Well, I've got one side, and now I want to come up a little bit on my color with the lighter yellow. This is the middle yellow. I'm going to add just a little white to it because I'm going to tell you why. The yellows are very, very transparent. Okay, when I do a giant, I'll do a 30 by 40 tulip painting in yellow. It takes me 5 layers of paint. 5 layers in order to get the intensity of yellow that I need in oil. Acrylic is still fairly transparent too. So it might take me five layers, but at least it doesn't take me 5 weeks to do. You know, 5 weeks of waiting for it to dry. So, okay, now I've got a little bit of that next yellow color. And now I'm going to do a little bit more of what I did up here. I'm going to start another between those 2 petals, and I'm going to put some yellow like that. But on top of that, I want to now come over here and slightly beyond where this piece is, okay? Right, slightly beyond where the center of that flower is, I'm going to now lay my brush down flat like this and overlap into the center of the flower. And that's hard for you to do. You know why? Because you're uncomfortable overlapping. All right, everybody's uncomfortable. They want to separate everything out. But in order for this to work, you have to kind of do pretty much what you did over here, but you're going to come out beyond it, drag it in, and overlap it. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to come out beyond it, come in and overlap so that it looks like it's kind of folding in on itself. That's the trickiest thing about it. But it works when you finally get it. It's a wonderful experience to finally go, oh, that's how that works. Okay. And then I'll throw in a little more of that yellow up there. I'm not going to mess around too much with this flower because it's way up on the top of the screen and we don't need to be worrying about that. We need to think about where our focus is, which is right there. But meanwhile, while we're waiting a little bit more for that to dry, I'm going to now come down with another stem. And this one's behind this one, so I'm going to come behind it, bring it into the jar, jump over the edge, and kind of drag it in like that. Now they shouldn't be kind of leaning just side by side, so we'll take this one and make it crisscross, and that one will crisscross, and that'll make a little bit more sense. Meaning not just making it look like fence posts or chopsticks. Okay, so all right, now we'll go to this one next, and we're going to do the same thing. This is really, really going to be fun. All right, so now I'm going to come in, and I'm going to I'm just going to barely overlap this one. Drag it out with the lighter paint and flip it. See how that kind of curls a little bit? I think I want to make this one a little bit bigger, so I'm going to pull it out even farther and make these, because it's our focus sunflower, and so I'm dragging that out and making it just a little bit longer in its petals. All right, any questions on that?
Yeah, we've just had one come in from Barbara. And her question is, Do you ever mist your palette or your paint with water to keep your paint from drying?
You can. There are these stay wet palettes that have a sponge on the bottom of them. Has anybody used one of those? I have one and I haven't used it. But yes, especially in the summertime, you can just use a little bit of misting water. You want to be careful not to use too much water because it will break down the paint. Okay, so I would say a third. You wouldn't want to use any more than a third, but misting it will work, especially if it starts developing a little bit of a crust over the top. And so that, yes, that's a very good question. Thank you, Barbara. So here we go down like this. Look, I've got a little orange in my brush there. Ooh, that's really neat. And so now let's do the same thing. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is that, especially when you're using tubes of paint that are thicker, and if it's getting too thick or you want to make a nice glaze of stuff, there is a PVA sizing. Let's see, is that what I want to say? It's called gloss. There's a lot of different words. Extender, acrylic retarder, the PVA. It's like Elmer's glue. Okay, and there's also stuff called Floral, which is just something you get at the hardware store. But there are certain ways to thin out the paint a little bit and also give it a bit of a gloss. So the high gloss varnish that goes into it. Check out your art store and find some of those things instead of using water, okay? Because water will, if you put too much water in it, it will break your paint down and it'll just look flat and lifeless. But this, the medium is very, very good. I don't want to use a lot of water. I don't use a lot of water. I use the water to wash my brushes, okay? And, okay, if you accidentally, write this down, everybody, write this down. If you accidentally leave your brushes out and forget to wash them, don't do that with your acrylic paint because you think, oh my gosh, it's over. No, I have this thing. I have a remedy for that. And I don't know how I figured this out. But you know that crazy Murphy's oil soap for wood cleaning? You just stick them in overnight in that straight into the stuff, and it will take the paint right out of your brushes, and you won't have to throw them out. Okay, you can say, oh, that saves me a lot of money. Yes, it does. Okay, I'm talking too much. All right, now I'm going to go back in, and we're going to start again over on this side, slightly outside of this one. We're going to do the same kind of thing here. Drag it, and then twist the brush. It's that cool twisting motion that gives these petals their interesting look. It's a twist like that. Okay, and then I'll do the same over here a little bit. This isn't a very important one, so I don't want to give it too much light. I just want to kind of make it like it's sort of there a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit to that, a little bit to that. Just kind of fiddle around with it a little bit. And I think I want to make it a little bit bigger, so I'm going to drag it way out and put some petals in. Put that one over the top like this, and we'll do the same over here. All right, only this time we're just going straight out with the middle yellow. Lots of different colors of yellow, everybody, and some of them are more orange. Look how transparent that is, and I'm just flipping it like that. Make it. I think I want to make this one kind of come down a little bit more. I think there's like 54 petals in everything, but you don't have to put all 54 in. You know, that's all right. Okay, so that's coming in, and now while we're waiting for some of them to dry, I'm just going to grab our little green and make sure that one ends up in the, and I'm crossing it. See how I crossed it there? That's much better. I can put a little indication right there. All right, and then that one's come down. This one's come down. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have 3 lines. Well, where'd that other one go? 1. Okay, well, we'll just put an extra one in there. Who cares? Okay, there we go. Wiping the brush off, and I actually might wash my brush out a little bit on this part because if I don't, I might end up with green petals. Okay. Now, let's see. Now I want to move up to the next level. And so I'm going to take my white and I'm going to go into this. This is a another level up. I'm going to add white to this deep yellow over here. It's going to be slightly different, be a slightly different yellow. And a lot of times I would take my hair dryer and blow this dry, okay? I'd blow these dry in between, but we're just going to load up our brush and hope for the best, okay? So as it dries, it's going to be a little bit different. And so now this is my focal flower right here. So now I'm going to take this next lighter color and look how that just begins to really get crazy, beautiful, bright. Flip it a little bit, give it some life, make them a little bit long. So some of them are sticking out behind. And I might now come in and overlap the edge of my jar right here. Isn't that fun? The vase. And I'm still not happy with the size of these, and they're very transparent, so I'm going to add some white to it and curl that in. Now you can see it. See that? Okay. Flip that in, so come from the outside and flip it in like that. It looks harder than it is. You can do this. I know you can. All right, so I'll put just a little bit of that white on my brush, flip it like that, and maybe a tiny bit. I get carried away. I don't want to have so much focus up here. I can't help myself sometimes. You do want to think about having one area of focus, so I don't want to do much more over here. I want that to disappear, okay? I want this part to disappear a little bit. It's there, but it's not where my eye is going. This is beautiful, but I want my eye to go in where the lightest light meets the darkest dark at the sharpest edge, which is right there, okay? And then we bump up one more level to this lemon yellow right here. Lemon yellow. And if I just put that on, it's going to be, it's very transparent. I'm going to add some white to that too. It'll be really light. Might be too light and we'll have to back up the train. But I'll put this, let's see what happens when I do this. So I've loaded my brush up with a ton of paint. And now I'm going to come up and I'm going to add, and of course I would probably need to let this dry a little bit more. I think I will let that dry for just a second because it's just not going to do it. I'm going to grab just white and see what happens. Yes, okay. There, now it's looking a little bit, you can see the contrast, of course, a little bit silly right here, but okay. Now that's really punched up with the lights coming in there. Just like that. Sounds like my husband's got a little cough today. Got a lot of smoke. I don't know if it's smoky where you are, but wow, it's been a lot of fires up here. Okay, so like that, and then let's see what else I can do. So I've really got a nice focus, and I'm just playing around a little bit like that. That's not the right color right there. I'm going to go back into my greens so that I don't have that too high in focus. And then I'm going to wipe off my brush one more time, and then I'll go back into my blues at this stage and make sure that it looks like I got green in there too. I'll come back in like this, come around, and kind of reshape my vase a little bit so that I know that those things are not coming through. They're still inside the vase like this. That, and I might add just a little bit of a shadow part at the bottom, just so it feels like they're sitting in something. Now what's wrong with this picture? Well, I'll tell you, I've got the sun shining down and it's hitting these leaves right here, and then the vase at the bottom doesn't have a cast shadow. So I'm going to just get a little bit of my dark values. This is a little bit of purple with some orange and some blue. And I don't think about what the color is. Sometimes I'll do lavender, but we've got a lavender table. So I want to kind of give this a little bit of a warm shadow like this. We'll cast shadow. And what happens when light goes through a piece of glass? Well, I've got a basic shadow down here, and now I can take a little bit of my teal, and watch this. I'm going to pop a little teal in there. That's a little too much. I might just kind of drizzle that around a little bit so it looks as though light is coming through there, just like right there. Okay, that kind of is one of my little secrets. I do that a lot in oil, and you can do it in, and there's my teal right there, so that it makes sense. And I'll just kind of mush that out a little bit and kind of go over the top of a little bit of these so that it doesn't look like they're on the outside of the jar. It's a little weird. This is when you want to use maybe some medium. If your paint's drying up a little bit, you can make it transparent and play around with it a little bit that way. Is that looking transparent out there? I hope so. The vase sits down very, very solid on the bottom, and so you do want kind of a parting line at the very, very bottom of the vase, like that. And where the jar kind of is thicker, or where it comes in like that, there's going to be a little bit more of a darker line right there. Okay, good. Now, I want to come back in just a little bit more. I'm going to take some orange and some blue, and we're going to make it, looks a little bit too orangey. Let's see, let me get this. I'm really making a mess. I got to wash this brush out. Actually, I'm going to use a different brush. Okay, a little bit of blue. Back up, go back into that green again, or that yellow. And now I'm going to look at what happens when it dries. What happens here is that leaf just disappeared. So now I'm going to come in and give this a line down the middle, like that, and a few little things like this. If you want to make it really kind of interesting or a little more modern, you can add interesting lines to it, like some reds, or, and let's see, I'm going to come up there. Now you can see it. Okay, if it's a little too white, I'm just brightening it up so that you can see it a little bit. There we go. There, like that. All right. Again, you can't really tell until it starts drying what it's going to look like, and then you just have to keep adding more, a little bit more paint to it until you're happy in the end. And I've got this leaf looking like it's white. That's all right. There we go. That, just a tiny bit of that lighter color inside the jar and fiddling around. Now, here's another little tip. When it comes to the center part of these flowers, one of the most fun things to do is to take the back of your paintbrush, not the brush part, but the back of the paintbrush, and you can, I'm going to just use the orange so you can see. I dipped into the orange, right like that, and I used the back of the paintbrush as an implement to make little dots. So I can put a tiny dot there, a little bit of a dot, and I can do this in different colors. You can do it in metallics if you like. You can do it in browns and oranges. I keep putting my head in front of the camera. There we go. And so then you give it nice texture. And you know, you can decorate your vase if you want with different things. I'm not going to do that. But making some little textural dots, you can do it in different colors. You can come back up and create another layer with some yellow in there too, and create the patterns that you need to kind of pop that out. I can do that, you know, up in there too. I can kind of come in with my orange and make little dots. You can make them perfectly round. You can just make them kind of random if you want. That's kind of a fun little thing to do, and maybe a bronze color or orange and that kind of a thing. Okay, Well, that's kind of fun, isn't it? All right. Now, I think that's probably, oh, wait a sec. If I want to make, I'll do one last little thing. If I want to make this feel as though there's light on the table, let's see. Grab a new brush. I can create a little sense of light by taking some of the yellow with a little bit of white and creating a little bit of light coming across the table like that. I'm just glazing or grazing across with my brush and with a little bit of yellow and white, and it makes it feel as though there's light coming across the table like that. This makes it more dramatic, and I might just add just a tiny bit inside the jar, inside the vase. Just keep tweaking it a little bit here and there. Yeah, that makes it look like you're seeing a little bit of that table right through. I'm not putting a big glomp of paint on there, but I'm just kind of adding just the sense of something behind that table. Makes it really dramatic, maybe a little too dramatic. A little bit of a thing here, a little here. You just can play and play and play. Isn't that fun? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any more questions here? Oh my goodness. Very, very different than what we normally do, but it's fun. And oh, I see I've got a nice big brown thing right down here. Was I going to do another flower down there? I think so. Anyway, so yeah, you can play around. And then, of course, if you want to keep putting more colors on, the second layer is usually more dramatic. You see how that I can put my second layer of teal on and create, and then if I have some areas that need to be corrected, I can paint in the negative shape if I want to make a correction. So I can come in here and just, you know, correct the outside of that vase like that and brighten it up and make it beautiful. Keep adding layers and layers and layers and layers, and that's what the glorious thing with the wonderful thing about acrylics is all about, is the layering and being able to work in it and do textures and all kinds of things. I'm working in a new style, and I hope someday to be able to share it with you. I'm doing some that it's a little bit like Gauguin and Van Gogh, and I know that's not everybody's favorite, but it will have things like a dark line around some of the flowers, some textures, some collage where I'll put papers in, glue it down with the PVA sizing, and then paint over the top of it. And it's just crazy. The sky is the limit, and I hope you will join me again sometime. I think are we going to be shifting gears, Dr. Williams? I'm trying to figure out what's happening next.
Thank you. Well, we've accomplished our goal. And,
I think we have.
I think we've introduced flowers
Sure.
wonderfully well to our audience tonight. And so thank you for getting things started. I'm always amazed at how quickly you can accomplish something within our 50 to 55 minute window. And you've certainly done it again tonight. And so thank you. And so let's just do a little information for those that are watching and a reminder as to where your art is and how people can get information from you. So let's start with where your primary website is.
Okay, so it's nettiek.com, and that's NETTIE, the letter K.com. And I would also like to say that if you are in the McCall, Idaho area, and you would like to come and take a class with me up here, in fact, we were thinking about doing one a little bit more extensive in our sunflowers. They are 3-hour classes, and I'm probably going to do this one in another probably week and a half. And so if you're interested, This is going to be a special class for vaccinated students. Okay, I know I'm not trying to be political here, but we have some kind of fragile health situations with some of our students. So we're asking that if you are wanting to come to a class and you happen to be vaccinated, contact me on my email. And so my email is NettieKStudio, NettieKaye studio @yahoo.com. Okay, and we'll see if we can get a group together and we'll paint these sunflowers together. I have about 12 of these canvases left, and I would love to see you in my classroom. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Nettie K, and thank you for accomplishing so much in our time tonight and allowing people to see how we can start with flowers. And so thanks ever so much. Well, that was a wonderful continuation of our art and art history series that we've been doing with Nettie K. Next week, we'd like to make a shift. And if you go on the McCallCollege YouTube site, and that's www.youtube.com/McCallCollege, all one word. If you go on the McCallCollege site, you'll see there's an awful lot of video series that we've been working on here at McCallCollege. And one we did back in the spring is on vaccine hesitancy. And so if you're one that's thinking about the vaccine, but you haven't started the series yet, we would invite you to look at our series on vaccine hesitancy. This is a 7 conversation video series with various people around the McCall, the Valley County, and some of our regional experts on vaccines and vaccine hesitancy. And next week, what we're wanting to do is add and update our series. Our prime guest is Dr. Mike Weiss, who's a retired epidemiologist now living in McCall. And we've invited him back so that we could have an opportunity of learning about the variants that is happening with COVID-19 and the booster that is being suggested. What are these variants? Why do we need a booster? And so Dr. Mike will assist us in those questions. So it's a bit of a shift in our conversation series, but we hope you'll join us as we continue our conversations on COVID-19 and vaccination. You'll also find on the YouTube site a wonderful conversation on mental health and some of the mental health experts here in our region. And we would invite you to take a look at that if you've had some concerns on mental health and would like some additional information from professionals. As you can see, McCallCollege has some great series that are developing. And we hope in a few weeks we'll be able to come back to our art and art history with Nettie K and continue this series. So make sure you subscribe to our McCallCollege site, and that will allow you to be updated when the series can. Again, thank you for joining us. We trust you've learned a lot tonight, and we trust you're able to use your knowledge in art history to make some wonderful flowers for you and your friends. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next Thursday at 7 p.m. for Community Education with McCallCollege. I'm Dr. Brian Williams, and thanks for joining.